I did not start paying attention to my period because someone sat me down and taught me everything about it. I actually started paying attention to it because my period changed. I got my first period when I was 13, just after finishing junior secondary school, which is roughly the equivalent of year 9. Thankfully, I was at home. I remember happily rushing to tell my mom, and then she gave me sanitary pads and showed me how to use them. As far as I can remember, I did not understand much about what was happening inside my body or what my menstrual cycle could tell me about my health. But then, my periods were mostly smooth, so I did not think much about them. Then, in November 2013, I gained admission to the University of Port Harcourt to study pharmacy. The university had just returned from a strike, so everything felt rushed. The hostel I moved into was overcrowded. There was barely any space to keep my bags, not to talk more of storing food. So I had to rely on what was easy: noodles, carbonated drinks. These kept me running while I attended numerous lectures, tests, practicals, with barely any rest. After some months, the period that had never really disturbed me started coming with very painful cramps, severe nausea, and vomiting. Sometimes they were bad enough that they made me miss classes. That was the first time my period really demanded my attention. My friend Quincy and I decided to combine resources so that we could cook together. That way, I ate fewer noodles and more proper meals. Gradually, the symptoms reduced. But that experience stayed with me. It was one of the first times I realized that whatever I did throughout the month had an impact on how I felt when my period arrived. Years later, that experience led me to write my first ebook, Your Ultimate Guide to a Smooth Menstrual Journey. Then, in January 2022, shortly after receiving my first COVID 19 vaccine dose, I experienced one of the worst periods I had ever had. I had diarrhea just before leaving the house, so I took loperamide. Then on my way to the office, I felt so unwell. I vomited. I had to look for a nearby hotel so I could use the toilet. I could barely make it back home. Thankfully, I met one of my friends, Peter, and he had to carry me on his back to the family house where we stayed during the National Youth Service. Because I had started paying attention to my menstrual cycle, I could tell that that period was different from my usual experience. And honestly, the timing felt almost ironic. I was just about to release my ebook titled Your Ultimate Guide to a Smooth Menstrual Journey, yet I had just had one of my worst period experiences. For a moment, I felt discouraged, but that experience taught me something important. Understanding your menstrual cycle does not mean every period will be perfect. It just means that you're better able to understand when something is irregular. You notice when something unusual happens. You identify possible triggers. You respond earlier, and you know when it's time to seek professional help. During my National Youth Service, I went on to speak to secondary school students on the importance of paying attention to their menstrual health. But while I was teaching others, I was still learning more about my own body. Over time, I started paying attention to patterns around my period, my mood, my energy, my cravings, my sleep, the foods I ate, how much I moved. Now I approach my period with the curiosity of a student waiting for the result of an examination. My period gives me feedback. This does not mean that every menstrual symptom is as a result of lifestyle. Neither does any woman have to blame herself when she is struggling. I'm still learning my body too. My goal is to keep understanding my patterns, reduce symptoms so that they don't disrupt my life, and use medications only when I genuinely need them. But I have come a long way from the person who felt controlled by her cravings, emotions, and period symptoms. And that journey is why I now support women dealing with PMS, particularly bloating, mood swing, fatigue, cravings, and painful cramps. You should not have to lose several days to these symptoms without understanding why they keep happening or how to support yourself better. If the days before your period regularly leave you feeling bloated, exhausted, emotional, in pain, or feeling completely unlike yourself, I'd love to hear your experience. What is the one symptom that bothers you the most every month?